So we are discussing about accession of princely states to India. We discussed about Junagadh, which was acceded to India after a plebiscite, a voting by the people in which the will of the people was registered, who voted overwhelmingly in favor of India. The next state whose accession we are discussing is accession of Jammu and Kashmir. In Jammu and Kashmir, we saw the Pathani tribesmen, indirectly supported by the Pakistani army, invaded India and captured territory reaching up to POK. The ceasefire which was held was because of UN intervention. UN intervention came on the advice of Lord Mountbatten, then Governor General of India, who advised Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru to go for UN intervention. UN Security Council, we saw, however, favored Pakistan rather than taking a firm stand against it. So this was a major folly. And in 1951, UN again passed a resolution which provided for a referendum under UN supervision after Pakistan had withdrawn its troops from that part of Kashmir under its control. This Pakistan has not done till date, so the referendum and this resolution remains infructuous because Pakistan refuses to withdraw its territory from what is today known as Azad Kashmir or POK. So the referendum which UN resolution calls for cannot take place, and even the referendum which Jawaharlal Nehru had wished and declared that would be conducted before allowing the Maharaja Hari Singh acceding to Jammu and Kashmir to India, he said that later a referendum would be conducted, but again it cannot be held because POK is under Pakistan occupation, so we cannot have a referendum over the whole of Jammu and Kashmir. So this demand remains infructuous. And even presently in the UN General Assembly, we saw Prime Minister of Pakistan Nawaz Sharif making a demand from India that it should hold a referendum and fulfill its promise to people of Jammu and Kashmir. But this is not possible when the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir is divided along the LOC. So this is the status of Kashmir presently. The next state which we look at is the third state who created troubles in accession, which was Hyderabad. Hyderabad was the largest state in India and completely surrounded by Indian territory. India signed a standstill agreement. In November 1947, Government of India signed a standstill agreement with the Nizam of Hyderabad, hoping that while the negotiations are proceeding, Nizam would make arrangements for acceding to India. However, this Nizam of Hyderabad had other plans. He started preparing his military to making it strong so that India accepts its demand for independence. So the Nizam hoped to prolong negotiations and in the meanwhile build up his military strength and force India to accept its sovereignty. So there was rapid development on this ground. The Nizam took assistance from the Razakars. Razakars were the armed military wing of a communalist organization then in Hyderabad. This communal organization, Ittihadul Muslimin, and its paramilitary wing Razakars, they committed unimaginable atrocities on the people of Hyderabad. The people of Hyderabad started flooding into Indian territory. The Razakars had to be crushed, and this decision had to be taken by then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, but force was not to be used. He did not want to use force against the Nizam. So eventually the Hyderabad State Congress in the princely state, it launched a powerful satyagraha against the Nizam to force him to democratize the princely state and stop the atrocities of the Razakars. But the attacks of the Razakars were drastic, and the repression which the state imposed on its own people eventually resulted in the decision to bring in the army being taken by Jawaharlal Nehru. This happened in 1948. So eventually on 13 September 1948, the Indian army moved into Hyderabad. The Nizam surrendered after 3 days and acceded Indian Union into the Indian Union in November 1948. The government of India decided to be lenient to him. They did not punish the Nizam, rather he was made the Raj Pramukh, the governor of Hyderabad. And he was also given a privy purse. Privy purse was a money which was given to all the princely state rulers to ensure that they continue having the privileges which they had during British rule too. So these private purses came from Indian funds, Indian consolidated funds, and they were constitutionally provided to them. Eventually, of course, these private purses were abolished by Indira Gandhi government, and no more any princely state ruler has any private purses. Indian names. So this was the status then. So all three princely states we see, Junagadh, Jammu and Kashmir and Hyderabad, were integrated into India. Now what was required was reorganization of these princely states within the Indian territory. So the smaller princely states were either merged with the neighboring states or merged together to form a common centrally administered area. Some of these centrally administered areas, 5 major unions of princely states which were formed were Madhya Bharat, Rajasthan, Pepsu, which is known as Patiala and East Punjab States Union, and Saurashtra. Some others were formed as separate states under the Indian Union because they were so large. Some of these are Travancore, Cochin, Mysore, Hyderabad and Jammu and Kashmir. So this was the status of princely states, administrative territories. About the rulers, we see that in return of their surrender of all powers and authority, rulers of major states were given privy purses in perpetuity, free of all taxes. Of course, as I said, this was later abolished. The privy purses in 1949 amounted to 4.66 crores, and these were guaranteed by the constitution too, which again later we have amended and abolished. The rulers were allowed succession to the Gaddi and retained certain privileges such as keeping their titles, flying their personal flag and gun salutes on ceremonial occasions. Of course, this has also been abolished, abolition of titles. No person can call himself Maharaja anymore. So this has also been abolished eventually. So thus the princely states integration is completed. Another integration which was required was integration of some regions which were not under the Britishers but under other colonial rulers. The Britishers were not the last colonial rulers to leave India. The last colonial ruler to leave was the Portuguese. The French were also there, who left after the British. They left in 1954. So these two trouble spots. French territories were, of course, major region was Pondicherry on the India's east and west coast. Pondicherry has regions both on India's eastern and western coast, and another region was under the Portuguese. The Portuguese had major control of Goa, Daman and Diu and Dadra and Nagar Haveli. So the French authorities were reasonable. After prolonged negotiations, they agreed and they left. Pondicherry was handed over to India in 1954. So that took place peacefully, but the Portuguese were reluctant to hand over their territories. They were supported by the NATO allies, USA and UK. So they did not want to be easily handing over the region of Goa. So what happened was, government of course started a policy of negotiations with them, but that did not happen. So eventually Goa had to be liberated militarily. People of Goa also started protesting against the Portuguese rule and they were brutally suppressed. Nehru eventually ordered the troops to enter into Goa on the night of 17 December 1961. And finally in 1961, even Goa was liberated. The Governor General of Goa immediately surrendered without even a fight. So eventually the integration of all the regions with India was completed. The next part which we look at is the communal holocaust, which was to accompany the partition. Partition and violence which accompanied it left nearly 6 million refugees pouring into India, having lost their all. Unspeakable atrocities were perpetrated on the minorities in both India and Pakistan. In the span of few months, nearly 5 lakh people were killed and property worth thousands and millions of rupees was looted and destroyed. Even in Delhi, under the nose of the central government, the looting and killing of Muslims lasted for several days. So eventually, during August-September, the back of communal violence in Delhi was broken, bringing the army on the streets and ordering the police to shoot at communal mobs indulging in looting and killing. Nehru, he was an ardent Democrat. Even he eventually said, portraying communalism as Indian version of fascism. The wave of fascism which is gripping India now is the direct outcome of hatred for the non-Muslims, which the Muslim League preached amongst its followers for years. The League accepted the ideology of fascism from the Nazis of Germany. The ideas and methods of fascist organizations are now gaining popularity among the Hindus also, and the demand for establishment of a Hindu state is a clear manifestation. This was a clear point of view laid down by Jawaharlal Nehru, comparing communalism with fascism and comparing the Hindu communalists to the Muslim communal organization Muslim League and saying they are committing the same folly. Also, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel clearly spoke in favor of Nehru and in favor of a united India. Gandhiji himself spoke in favor of united India against the communalist wave. He was also assassinated for that matter, which we'll look further. Democratic though Nehru was, he even advocated a ban on political organizations based on religion and got the constitution amended to enable the government to impose reasonable restrictions on the right to free speech and expression in order to curb communal speeches and writings. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel declared in 1950, ours is a secular state. Here, every Muslim should feel that he is an Indian citizen and has an equal right as an Indian citizen. If we cannot make him feel like this, we shall not be worthy of our heritage and our country. So Gandhiji on 15th August 1947, he was not celebrating independence, rather he was easing the communal wave, trying to bring in peace in regions worst affected by it in West Bengal. So in August 1947, he was there touring Bengal and Bihar, dousing the communal fire and bringing comfort to the people. Of course, the celebration of independence had hardly died down, and on 30th January 1948, a Hindu communal fanatic, Nathuram Godse, assassinated Gandhiji. They were not happy with Gandhiji majorly because of his points of views. They felt he favored Pakistan. They felt that he favored Muslims and he was against establishment of a Hindu state. So based on these points of view, Nathuram Godse assassinated Mahatma Gandhi. Nathuram Godse was associated with RSS and immediately the government banned RSS, Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, and arrested most of its leaders and functionaries. The ban of RSS, of course, was later lifted in 1949 and this was done on the behest of then Home Minister Sardar Patel, who put conditions on RSS and took those assurances from them and the ban was lifted. These conditions were that RSS would adopt a written and published constitution, restrict itself to cultural activities and not meddle with politics, renounce violence and secrecy, profess loyalty to India's flag and constitution and organize itself along democratic lines. So this was the communal wave which swept India immediately post-independence and post-partition, taking away the life of the most revered leader, Mahatma Gandhi. He was eventually assassinated. Another problem which India faced during this time was rehabilitation of refugees. The government had to stretch itself to the maximum to ensure that the resettlement and rehabilitation of nearly 6 million refugees who had poured in from Pakistan, losing their all, were adjusted into India. The problem was more severe on the eastern side. While nearly all Hindus and Sikhs from West Pakistan had migrated in one go in 1947, a large number of Hindus in East Bengal had stayed on there in the initial years of 1947 and 1948. But as communal riots broke out periodically in East Bengal, there was a steady stream of refugees from there year after year till 1971, when eventually Bangladesh was formed. So unlike in Bengal, most of the refugees from West Punjab could occupy the large lands and property left by Muslim migrants to Pakistan from Punjab, UP and Rajasthan, and therefore could be resettled on these lands. But that was not the case on the eastern side. So it was much more severe on the Bengal side. Another problem which we saw was how to maintain relations with Pakistan. So in January 1948, the government of India, following a fast by Mahatma Gandhi, paid Pakistan 550 million rupees as part of the assets of partition, even when it feared that the money might be used to finance military action in Kashmir. So along with the issue of Kashmir, there was also the issue of payment of money which was due post division of assets to Pakistan. So India had to hand over this money, but Indian government was fearful that this money should not be handed over to Pakistan now. It would be used militarily against us. But Gandhiji was firm that we should hand over Pakistan what is due to it. We cannot illegally withhold that payment. So Gandhiji